When it comes to therapy, there are a lot of different options out there, but what's the best one when it comes to dealing with anxiety? Welcome back to the channel. As regular viewers will know, I am a therapist. I work one-to-one with clients to help them get over anxiety issues. So I often get asked the question, what is the best approach, the best therapy for dealing with and getting the other side of an anxiety issue? Now, in this video, what I'm going to do, I'm going to break down my opinions on a couple of the more popular therapies and kind of explain why I do what I do. But of course, this isn't categorical, this isn't objective, this is literally just my subjective opinion, having worked in the field for the last, well, nearly 15 years now. Okay, so first up, CBT, cognitive behavioral therapy. The reason I want to talk about this one is because it is literally the most popular therapy in the UK. It's the one that you can get an NHS referral to go and have. Now, I inevitably have a slightly negatively biased opinion on CBT because the clients that I see, I'm a private practitioner, and many of them have already tried going the National Health Service route and they've had some form of CBT. Of course, I will see the clients who it didn't work for, who it didn't resonate with, whereas I won't see the clients who got great results with. The only real opinion on CBT that I have is that it seems to me to be tremendously counterintuitive when it comes to dealing with anxiety, because CBT requires a lot of cognitive conscious effort. There's a lot of interrupting of thoughts. There's a lot of filling out forms, that kind of thing. And there is constant ongoing work to do. Now, anyone that's dealt with anxiety will know that anxiety kind of thrives on our attention. The more we analyze it, the more anxious we potentially become. So I'm not saying CBT can't work, but for me, it just seems like a very counterintuitive method to adopt because potentially you're just going to exacerbate the thing you're trying to get rid of. And this is certainly what I hear from clients who come to me having already engaged in some form of CBT. It didn't resonate with them because it either didn't help or it just kind of made the focus on their anxiety a little bit more defined and as a result, a little bit worse. I should say though, there are people out there getting great results with CBT, so don't dismiss it entirely. The second thing I want to talk about is therapies that incorporate things like breathing techniques and more sort of somatic therapy, where we work with the mind and body connection. Now, it's certainly true, nothing that happens to your body is going to fail to impact on your mind. Nothing that happens in your mind is going to fail to impact on your body. There is that mind-body connection that we probably should be aware of and shouldn't dismiss. But to my mind, any therapy that works with the body's responses is dealing with the effect of anxiety rather than the cause. Every physical response we have, like increased breathing, increased heart rate, sweating, dizziness, anything like that, it's all started with a pattern of thought in your mind. So if we deal directly with the physical responses, we're seeking to calm the effects rather than deal with the cause of the problem. Now, don't get me wrong, if the thing that's causing you to feel most anxious is the fact that sometimes you lose control of your breathing or sometimes your heart rate goes up inexplicably, then having some method of managing your body's responses can ultimately calm what's going on in your mind. It can stop you fearing those responses. But ultimately, for me, my preferred method of working would always be, well, let's work with those patterns of thoughts that are inspiring and instigating those physical responses rather than simply dealing with the responses themselves. The final one I want to talk about is hypnotherapy. Now, obviously, I'm a hypnotherapist. That's my trade. So I'm going to talk about this with a slightly more positive bias, probably, because that's the discipline I learned first, and that's the one that really resonates with me. Now, there's a reason I like hypnotherapy, and that's because it deals directly with your subconscious, which is the part of your mind that is triggering all of your emotional responses. So we're speaking directly to the part of you that we need to get some rapid and sort of dynamic changes. But there are elements of hypnotherapy that I'm not fond of, and that's the reason why I've moved slightly away from them. One of those being the trance aspect of hypnotherapy. I'm not a fan of the whole close your eyes, relax, drift off into happy hypnoland, and when you wake up, everything will be fixed. There's a few reasons for that. I think it can seem a little bit creepy to the client. It can be a little bit like I'm attempting to take control of you in some way. And also it kind of disempowers the client. The idea here is that we should feel at the end of any session with a therapist empowered, knowing that we have made our own changes. If we're just going to put you on a couch, put you to sleep, and then hopefully when you wake up, you'll feel loads better, that's kind of the opposite of empowerment. It's directly disempowering you. in a slightly more positive way than high anxiety might be disempowering you, but disempowering you nonetheless. So the way I work kind of abandons any trance aspect of it and works with the client, directly communicating with their subconscious, but they're wide awake and involved at all times. So you don't just make the change, you know exactly how you've made the change and why this change will be robust and long lasting rather than fragile to the next challenge that arises in our life. But this isn't simply an endorsement of hypnotherapy and my particular style of hypnotherapy. What I want to say really is that ultimately, less important than the method that is employed is the therapist you're working with. If you had to ask me what's the most important thing, method or therapist, therapist every time. Many clients that I've seen who've engaged in other therapies prior to seeing me, their biggest complaint wasn't that, oh, I didn't like the method. It's because they didn't get on with the particular therapist. So I think what's going to happen if you're looking for therapy, if you're looking for a therapist, then you might go through a few of them. You know, you might have to kiss a few frogs before you find the prince, if you know what I mean. But I think that's okay, because when you find the correct therapist for you, and you'll know who they are just by the way you interact, there'll be a good rapport, there'll be a good feeling, a good vibe, if you like, to the sessions and to the work that you're doing. When you find that person, you will make huge changes and you will become more empowered and feel much better about your journey and where you're headed. So if you're watching this video and you've tried loads of therapies and maybe you're starting to give up on therapy being the right course of action for you, always know that when you find the right person, then you will get the results you're looking for. It isn't necessarily therapy as a whole that isn't working. It's that you just haven't quite found the right person to work with yet. That being said, there are lots of different ways that you can work with yourself and kind of be your own therapist and make your own changes. If that interests you, then I want you to check out this video because I'm going to teach you how to be your own therapist.